Hi, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Leadership Reflections with Nandita. This is the first in the series that we are starting, and we are joined today by Mr. Harish Trivedi, a leadership practitioner who closely works with senior leadership teams navigating complexity, alignment, and change. He spent years in the leadership role himself and is presently the regional CEO of Care Hospitals. So he brings a very on the ground in understanding of what it takes to work with high pressure environments. And that's what makes his voice especially relevant in the conversation of future to the workforce. Having seen firsthand what expectations from workforce are evolving, what people value, how they engage, and what it takes to build teams that perform sustainably. He brings a lens that is both practical and deeply reflective. It is indeed a pleasure to welcome you, Harish, today. Welcome to this live session with us.
Thank you, Nandita, for having me and giving me this opportunity to interact with you. Thank you.
So, Harish, before we start, I would just like to mention that you have a very, very hectic schedule, which I always talk about, and you just are able to very beautifully navigate and move from city to city under high pressure situations, right? Something that is, I think, expected of leaders today. Am I correct on that?
Yes, my work keeps me busy all the time. And when you are busy, it requires a lot of traveling. Since I manage a very diverse geography from east
Hmm.
of India to central to west and south. So, yes,
Okay.
it keeps me busy all the time.
So, in the number of years of experience that you have as in the leadership positions that you've held across the country, and I do see you move from south to the southernmost part of the central India and then across the country you're working. What, according to you, is that one belief about work or leadership that has changed and that is no longer valid in today's environment?
Right, thanks, Nandita. Let me say something we experienced firsthand at the care hospital. For
Mm-hmm.
decades, in healthcare organization operated on a simple social contract. We offer job security and a stable salary, and in return, we expect employee to show up, follow hierarchy, and deliver. That was the assumption, and for a
Yeah.
long time it worked. But today, especially Gen Z, and I say my daughter is again comes falls under Gen Z. These are the people who are entering in the workforce. That contract has been fundamentally rewritten. They are not asking for a job. They are asking for a sense
Mm-hmm.
of purpose, psychological safety, and genuine two-way feedback. And a manager who sees them as a human resource and not
Mm-hmm.
just as a resource. We are telling people most of the time, here is your KRA and here is your appraisal cycle. And they are
Mm-hmm.
asking a simple question: why does my work matter? Who do I talk to them when I'm struggling? Will my voice actually be heard? And I'm sure you know the COVID has changed everything. COVID, social media, and generation that watch their parents sacrifice everything for the organization that let them down during the COVID period. So Gen
Okay.
Z and in general also does not have the same kind of a blind loyalty towards the organization. And honestly, they should not have to. What
Okay.
organization must stop assuming that the presence equal to engagement, the paycheck equals motivation, and the silence equals satisfaction.
Oh
The
my God,
unspoken,
that's okay. Yeah, go ahead, please. It's really
the
interesting. Go ahead.
unspoken, yeah. The unspoken shift is from the compliance to commitment, and you cannot mandate commitment; you earn it. So yeah, that has changed fundamentally from past 5 years. So yeah, that's
Mhm.
what I can say.
Okay. Okay. So when you say you spoke about a lot of things, how KPIs are no longer, what people are looking for. They're looking at what value, they are adding to an organization, and also about, commitment and all those kind of things. My question is then the old rules of leadership would also have to change, because if the younger generation or even the older workforce, which is also being influenced by them, is asking for what value am I bringing on, the old leadership rules cannot work anymore. I'm sure about that. So, what you and I had in our leaders may not work today. So, what do you think how leadership has to evolve to meet with these changing times?
Right. So you like rightly said, things have changed, and with the changing time, leadership must evolve. And this
Yeah.
is a question which is close to my heart. What we are
Okay.
saying is the friction every day at the workplace. We see a productivity as an issue. If I
True.
have to talk, say, from the hospital perspective, then just imagine what is happening at the workplace. Look at a scenario where nurses show up with the hesitation before escalating the issue, that she is not sure whom to go. The resident doctor who's working in the hospital who does not
Hmm.
flag a concern because the last time when he did, nothing happened. The administrative start caught between the two department heads with the conflicting instructions. So at Core Hospital, what we seen is that we did a structural mapping of the exercise amongst the different facilities, and we ask staff at the every level
Hmm.
where they lose time, energy, and confidence every single day. And what we realize when we mapped about the almost 10 friction point, and we
Hmm.
see most of them were seven related to communication gap,
Okay.
unclear instruction, role clarity is lacking, and nobody knows who's making the decision, who's the decision making authority. And very few of them were related to resources. So, what is
Okay.
happening every day on
Huh.
the floor is about building the structured clarity, clear ownership, clear escalation, and the culture where we want everybody to come together without any fear. And that's where the leadership needs to take the accountability and say, we are there and we are hearing you, we are listening you. And once we provide the clarity to the people who are working with us, will make all the difference. So back to you.
So I'll catch on to what you said. In hospitals, if nurses and doctors are bothered about if they escalated something, there was a repercussion or an ad. So they go simply by matrices and escalate. Okay, this is working, this is not working, or rather than taking ownership. So do you think that at times performance indicators, KPIs, or the measurement criteria that we have, and most organizations, it's not only in hospitals, it's the same everywhere. When you escalate an issue, and I work very closely with the automotive sector, they have the same issues. That if I go and tell there's an issue, my boss calls me and says, "You bring up issues." Right. So do I escalate? Do I not escalate? Because if it's done with Abhi Padme, we'll see what can happen. So how do you think that these number games that we are working with and something called ownership, can it coexist, or something needs to change there? Or what needs to change in the system so that we have more people who take ownership of their jobs rather than we saying, okay, this is the number and you drive it for us?
See, we are here talking about the accountability,
Hmm.
and the line is clarity is very important, right?
Yeah.
Especially specifically in healthcare, this is a life critical. If the protocol or a process is ambiguous, accountability becomes a blame shifting from one person to another. If the performance expectations are vague, accountability becomes very personal, and that is where the people disengage, right? That's where the problem is. So, in my practical framework, what I think is most of the time we talk about the accountability, but before accountability, we need to have a conversation with our people, and we
Okay.
need to ask three questions. Was the expectations clearly communicated and genuinely understood?
Okay.
Second, did the person have what they needed to meet what is required from them? And the third, was there a systematic or contextual barrier which we ignored? And if the answer to any of this question is no, then the accountability which we are discussing, it starts with the leader and not with the employee, right? So even we check all the above boxes which we just discussed,
The
what we
three
need to
ones.
ensure is the expectations were clear, support was available, context was fair. Then we talk about the accountability, and then it plays a very important role. So high performers don't object to accountability, they object to inconsistency, which is happening also across the organization. When the rules apply differently to the different people, or when there are no consequences for the underperformance, that's create all the problem.
So, if I sum up what you said, Harish, it's more about the leaders having to do a lot of change in their leadership style, because rather than saying employees should take ownership, which most people, most leaders today talk about, that, my employees are not taking ownership, they should start taking ownership and accountability. Here, you've totally reversed the whole thing and said leaders need to take accountability. They need to ensure that the goals or the tasks are very clearly communicated, an environment is given to them, and context setting is done. So, with this change in the whole perspective that you're bringing on, to say it's the leader's responsibility and he needs to take accountability to ensure that his team gets the right message and the right context and the environment to be able to perform. Do you think this kind of performance driven leadership is something which is person oriented, or it can become process oriented? Because when I say person oriented, because it's the charisma of the own leader who drives it, or can we have organizations which actually embody it and everybody, irrespective of who's sitting on the table, is able to do this?
So, Nandita, it is very important for everybody, and especially again about the leadership. What happens every single day is there are different triggers in the organization, and leadership needs to be held accountable about it. We have seen that employee, when accountability doesn't happen, then the good employees started disengagement. And I've seen they
True.
don't storm out, they drift slowly and silently, right?
Yeah.
So that's where the problem starts, and it starts doesn't starts very say immediately. This shift happens very slowly and gradually. And you must have seen any organization, the employee stops volunteering in the ideas in the meeting. They stay, they don't give the extra minutes which are required. Their long email of a complaint and discussion becomes very shorter. Their contribution becomes very technically correct, but not longer enthusiastic and complaint, and they are not committed. So these are the various areas where leadership needs to get accountable and need to work with the employees. The problem is how we can work with them. I can quote. So, what we see is 23% of the employees across the globe are only engaged. So, most of the time, something is all the time wrong in the organization, which we are fail to understand what is happening. And that's where leader needs to play active role, listen to them, understand what is happening, pay very close attentions. And most of the time what we do is we think the antidote is to all this problem is a bonus and a town hall which we conduct as a leader. And it's a sustained and genuine attention, knowing your people are well enough to notice the drift which is happening, and it's become a departure before we realize it.
So I hear you say, and I will ask the question after that town halls are only to motivate them and pump them up when you feel that the employees are not performing. But I'll go back to the statistics that you used, Harish, saying only 23% of employees are genuinely productive or efficient, right? If that is the number we are talking about, then we are losing out on a huge, huge chunk. And somewhere, and if I go back to what you said previously, that the high performers need to be rewarded. So, are we not putting too much pressure on the performers to compensate for those who are not performing? And as leaders, what can we do to ensure that everybody just goes up? Though there still will be a bell curve in terms of performance and in terms of their ability to work, but somewhere the whole graph has to shift towards a right side rather than a left side. Then,
No, so again, let's take the example you started with the town hall. Most of
yeah,
the time, town hall is a check the box. How many times we are genuinely concerned about the employees? Because if you are genuinely concerned, then it's not a once or quarter or a once in a year town hall which is happening in the organization. It
True.
is the daily engagement with the leader on the floor who's managing them, right? So, are we listening to our employees what they are saying? And most of the time, I say, I'm not very sure, because the everyday experiences which makes the difference, and not the big decisions. Most of the time, big decisions gives a headline, but
True.
everyday experiences which we provide to our employees writes the story. And when we ask what is the single biggest factor in the decision they take or stay in the organization, then you'll realize the salary comes at the fourth place. And if
Yes.
you genuinely wants to understand what is the top three, which every manager needs to listen, is everyone wants to be feel respected. They need to have the
Absolutely.
clarity about their role, and that's what makes the visible difference all the time in their life or in their daily experiences. And it is not about the policy decisions which organization takes or the one town hall which happens and having the interaction. For leader, this is, if they do this, then this is very humbling and empowering. You do not need a budget approval to make someone feel acknowledged, right? It is the most impactful engagement tool, and that's not a program. It is your behavior repeated every single day and the experience which you provide to your employees, and not this kind of a some town hall or a big decision or the announcement which you make. No. So I'll quote one more statistic. The 70% of the engagement driven on day-to-day interaction and not the organization level
Absolutely.
decision making. If you daily recognize what our employees are doing, then their productivity or their contribution goes up 4x. And you will not believe the number one which makes the major impact in the employee's life is my manager is listening to me. That's
Absolutely.
what is required.
Absolutely. And I think I've been blessed to have certain managers who made you feel, yes, your voice matters, yes, you matter. And that is where you want to do that extra to be, it's not always about being visible into the eyes of others. We want to be appreciated, respected, and you go that extra mile to actually work and prove to the manager your trust in me cannot be broken by something else. Absolutely. But then it brings me to another thing, which I very often talk about, is that if we are talking about day-to-day interactions, and that is what is creating an impact rather than just one-off events, a leader's personal presence, his communication style, his ability to impact, and his own empathy then plays a very critical role, which means that the whole buzzword that Indian corporatists today talking about, that executive presence is very important, does hold true in this sense. Then what are your views on that, Harish?
No, no, that's absolutely correct. That's what makes the difference every single day. And then we just discussed.
Yeah.
Uh, this is the question that I spend a lot of time thinking about, because in healthcare, what is very important is the if we lose the staff, just understand it's not just a HR metric, it's the patient care which we discuss. And that's where it becomes the executive presence which you are discussing plays a very important role. Just imagine if it's not there, then what will happen? It, and especially in healthcare, we are dealing with the invaluable human life. It is not just product and the services. So every single decision which we take or we don't take has an impact, and it gets accumulated every single day. And any decision which employee takes, whether to deliver or not to deliver, it never happens in a day. It gets accumulated. It gets accumulated, and there is a pile which made up of the unacknowledged efforts missed conversation and unfulfilled promises. And that's where it is very important and imperative on part of every executive or the managers or the leaders to remain engaged all the time and show the respect, be present in the moment which we do. And we need to find heroes every single week, every single month, and celebrate them, which most of the time, many of the organization, which we don't even realize or we don't do. Again, I'll say most of the time I have seen in many organization when I visit, they created a wall, heroes or the stars of the month, which we normally see even if you go to any pizza
Yes,
shop, they put up.
especially service industry.
So, but it is just a formality which they do. Are they
Absolutely.
genuinely taking it? Then the answer is no. And wherever you have seen the engagement which is happening, it makes a lot of difference. And especially in healthcare, every single decisions uh, taken even by the security guard or the person who's billing, every single interaction point up to the nurses to the doctors who take care of the patients. Just imagine if they are disengaged, they are stressed, and if they make a single mistake, what will happen? So it plays very important role, Nandita.
I think, Harish, I'd just like to add something here. When you say healthcare, I think the organizations I work with are very different. Currently, I'm engaged with in consulting assignments, are mostly in manufacturing, and I see them being no different than what you're talking about. Every single decision does lead to, I would, in your case, yes, it's life and death. But in other cases, also there it could lead to casualties, it could lead to safety concerns, or a lot of other issues. So what you're saying is absolutely right. And when you hear it from sitting on the other side, uh, it feels, oh, it's common sense. Every leader should know it, right? It's just basic. But the challenge is most leaders are still struggling with it because maybe they have their own KPIs and KRS to meet. They have so much more, and I think all organizations are looking at 10x growth, 5x growth, and it becomes difficult to chase targets, chase people, look at people. So, what do you think are leaders most struggling with this kind of an approach towards their teams and their organization? Is it mindset, is it systems, or is it people practices that they're struggling with to ensure to not be able to do something which is we see as very commonsensical right now?
Nandita, I'm sure you know the Peters principle that the leader, they get elevated to the level of their inefficiency, right? And
I
every
strongly
human,
believe that.
so every human being is very unique, right? We all
Absolutely.
come from the different background. We can say our educational background is different, economic background is different, social background is different, and
True.
we all have our aspiration and our fears. So when we talk to any human being, employee, or for that matter, a manager or a leader, you are just not talking to that individual, but that individual has been made over the years. There is a history, the person who is, and
Huh.
all that growing up or growing as a professional plays very important role. So most of the time we carry our fears, our aspiration, and we remain very focused in what we do and what is expected out of us. And that's where we always talk about the leadership is very celebrated word, right? And how it makes a difference on the ground. Every single person, any person who has a follower is a leader, and we all are a leader in our own perspective when we are
Absolutely.
working in the any organization. And we don't understand our people very well. We don't understand, similarly, like I have aspiration, my employee has aspiration and fear. If we understand that, see, what is very difficult to manage is the human resource. Rest all is very easy. So we need to understand, go to every single person's level and understand who they are and why they are. If we understand that, then we will be able to work every with that every individual, every employee, in make the difference in their life. Otherwise, most of the time we are just busy. Like you said, our KPIs, our target, we are running against it, and we are just so busy and engrossed in whatever we do. The small things, recognition, saying thank you, it makes a lot of difference. And I'll tell you. So whenever I meet my nurses, and they are very close to my heart, we just don't even know how much time they spend most of the time on the floor. Typically, everybody is expected to work for 8 hours, but I've seen the nurses sometimes working for 9 hours, 10 hours. Sometimes they have a difficult patients. They need to spend the time which is for their family with the organization and with that patient. And are we saying enough thank you to them? If we are not doing, then we are doing injustice as a leader or as a manager. And that's what we acknowledge, every single contribution, and recognize while that is happening. And if we are not doing on real time basis, then we are losing those opportunity of recognizing the great work, which may at some point of time will result in their exit. So it is not the say disappointment on one big decision. It is the small compilation which is happening every single day with every single employees, and that reflects at some point of time when they leave the organization. And I've seen once, so last week only, we were having the conference where I was discussing the impact of one single nurse leaving the organization, and the impact is anywhere between 75,000 to 1.5 lakhs rupees per nurse. Just imagine the impact at every single level growing up. And it's very difficult. It's very difficult. And I'll keep giving this example from the healthcare, because it's again close to my heart, because we are not dealing with the product and services, and dealing with the invaluable human life. Yes, Nathan.
Absolutely. So, Harish, you rightly said, you said that a leader's upbringing, cultural impact, influence does play a role. And to be able to understand people, they need to spend time with them. And like you rightly said, listen to them, because only when they listen, they would be able to understand their teams, their employees very well. Unfortunately, that's not a luxury most leaders have today, and they take the easier route of making assumptions. And I have seen that in my experience. And we do run workshops for a lot of organizations on unconscious biases. And when people do talk about it, they say, oh, okay, I also do this. It's about realizations, right? Most of us are not even aware that we have a lot of assumptions, and we make those assumptions when we work with our team members. So my question to you would be, are we are we aware that we are following in this assumption trap as leaders, or we just think, I know it, I have experience on my shoulders, I have done this before, uh, I did it this way and it worked. And those are certain assumptions I have about myself. And then we have the huge sea of assumptions for the new age Gen Zs, as we are blaming them to not being doing this and that, and then women folk entering. So do you think leaders are actually falling into the assumption trap as much as we would like them not to?
So the more often than any of us would like to admit this, especially in the healthcare, that is
Yeah.
particularly dangerous thing to say, that here is
Okay.
how assumption-based management plays out in a real life. A
Hmm.
manager assumes that the team knows the priority for the week because he or she mentioned in the last month's meeting, and the team assumes that the priority have shifted because of the something urgent came up, and both are operating on a different mental models of what matters the most. Things fall through. The manager is frustrated that the team is dropping the ball, and the team is frustrated that they are not told what to do. So both are right and both are wrong. And the root cause is not the incompetence, it is the undiscussed assumptions which we are discussing here. Especially in the
Absolutely.
clinical setting, we know the danger of assumptions. That's why we use checklist, handover protocols, read backs, structured communication. We do not assume. A nurse knows the patient allergy history, and we verify every time. They can't be assuming about it. But when it comes to a people management, We abound, we
Absolutely.
abandon that part. And the answer is a structured clarity conversation, regular brief, explicit alignment on what matters the most during the time period which we are agreeing. It's a week or a month, and why each person matter to us. And I'll give you one statistics here. The 40% time cite the unclear expectations from their top, which makes the employee frustrate. Another, I can give a data point where 57% of the time team conflict traces back to the difference in the role assumption. So these are the kind of a problem which can be there. So let's not assume. Assume is making ass of you and me.
Absolutely. So, again, going a little deeper into this, you rightly said for processes, we have checklists, and not only the healthcare industry where it's a matter of life and death, I'll go back again. But in most organizations I work with, there is a checklist for everything. In fact, if you look at human life and the way we work in our homes, we'll have a checklist of what to buy, what not to buy. We have our to do lists. But the moment we think of human interactions, I think somewhere we do have a lot of biases because it's easier to assume, and I know we are making an ass, but we don't want to believe that, and then move ahead because I don't have the time to have a conversation. I don't have time to clarify things. I feel uncomfortable because somewhere it may talk about my anxieties, my fears, my apprehensions, and it leads to issues. So that would bring me to a very important aspect of assumptions that we are having today. And I will go back to a topic which I think all organizations are dealing with, and I don't know how different the healthcare industry is in this context. It's about generational differences and generational assumptions. So there is assumptions on both sides. I wouldn't say only Gen Z has assumptions. We have assumptions in plenty about them, and they have assumptions about us, and which makes it extremely difficult for a lot of organizations to work with them. And I'm sure you would have seen a lot of reels around that, and to talk about how one generation is not working with the other. They have their biases. So what is your take on this whole generational difference? Is assumption based generational differences? Yes, there could be reality, we'll talk about that later, but in terms of assumptions alone.
So if we are saying that who's right or wrong, be it a Gen Z or the other, then it's very difficult questions. No one is wrong, right? Uh, we need to understand when we talk about either Gen Z or Zen Alpha or anything or boomers, whatever you say, every generation is very different, right? Their
Absolutely.
style of working is very different, their values are very different, and the way they have been brought up. If we talk about the generation, if we talk about our generation, then maybe we have seen a lot of difficulties which nowadays classically called as a sandwich generation, right? So you neither can't discuss or say anything to your parents or no to your kids. And similarly, I think Gen Z have a certain way of working, but what I really like about them, they are very upright. They know what they want.
Okay.
What everybody needs at the workplace, especially Gen Z, is the clarity. And if they know how if their every single action is contributing to the bigger picture of the organization, that means how they are contributing. If they know this, then it definitely makes a difference. The problem I see majorly, or the conflict which is happening, is the because for Gen Z, what is very important is the work-life balances. And if we talk about our generation, where if we are required to work even on weekend, which we are most of the time, that's okay. That's a fundamental belief or the value system we have. And
Hmm.
again, I'll quote 76% of Gen Z, for them, what is priority is work life balance over the salary or any other thing. when we take the interview, and most of the time in healthcare we work over a weekend, especially on Saturdays we work, and we interview Gen Z, then their first condition is, I'm not ready to work on Saturdays. At that point of time, there is a possibility you may like not like that answer, and we have our biases and we may not select them. But what I really appreciate, what is very important for them, and they have a clarity about it. So that's absolutely fine. Another thing you need to know that more than 50% of the Gen Z feels stress most of the time at the work. And for them, pay cut is not very important. What is very important is the work, the clarity, the engagement, and they are very vocal about it. So there is nothing wrong. So anyone either right or a wrong, I will not say that. So I was creating one YouTube video in our organization, and we did not ask to the senior people. We took the feedback from the Gen Z because things are changing. They have their own style, liking, disliking about everything, and taking the feedback is very important because things are very changing. And at the end of the day, we need to find a balance in whatever we are doing. So we cannot go at the same time on the extremes and at work. So we need to find a balance in whatever we do, and that's how organization will also need to evolve. And I see that is happening. There are sectors which are don't work on the weekend, and there are industries where you require to work on the weekend. So
Yes.
if you need to select based on your industry, then you need to be ready. So we need to find a balance. Yeah.
So, no, very rightly said. I think biases exist on both the sides, if you ask me. Because as much as we are biased that they don't want to work, they have want work-life balance, they don't stay back. So that also makes it, more difficult for us to work with them because we enter into a relationship with some presumptions and biases, which any small act just amplifies it and makes it sound very real. And on the other hand, they also have biases that, in fact, a very interesting thing happened with me. I travel on weekends to do trainings over the weekdays most of the time. So it was this one HR Spock I was talking to, and she said, Nandita, but why do you travel on weekends? So I said, because on Monday I can start work. No, you should tell the company your work finishes at 6. You will not take a night flight. And so she was giving me this. Kati, had I been in your place, I would have said no work after 6, no evening flights. I will not fly at night. So I heard her out. And she said, how do you balance work and life? That means you don't have a life. So I said, no, every 3 months I take 5 days off. I said, do you have that luxury? She said, no. I said, exactly my point. So I don't do it on a daily basis, but my way of looking at a work-life balance may be different from yours. And when she heard that, she smiled. A month later, when I met her at the same office, she said, I envy you. I think you have a better life than me because I work for 8 hours. And so it's all about at times assuming a lot of things. So because like you said, I think you also travel a lot. So people assume you don't have a life other than work. But whatever I've known of you, I've seen you going on breaks very often, Harish. I don't know if I was supposed to quote this or not, but yeah. So I think our perspectives are very different about work, about assumptions. And I think that if we understand each other through conversations, through listening, I think that would help a lot to understand the other generation or other. Even for my parents, I never liked them for a lot of things they told me. But then we, came around it. Even for our bosses, I'm sure you also had that. Your initial bosses, you found them extremely, I don't know, I found them very, very process driven. They were not smiling. But today, if I look at me talking to my team and I talk that way, I think they will run away. So I think we need to adapt. I think the key word here is adaptability, which when you need to work with the newer generation. Absolutely. So I have another question for you. If I look at how organizations need to rethink structure and flexibility to ensure that we are ready for the next coming generations, right? Which not only involves a Gen Z or a Gen Alpha coming in, but with technology playing such an important role, with AI coming in, with news every third day that this organization has asked people to leave, AI is taking over, and everybody doesn't know what's in store. How do organizations need to rethink on structure and flexibility to ensure that we have a work environment which is conducive performance driven, and of course, have a work life balance. Let me call it. Yeah.
True. So, another just again, I'll go back to the point which you were discussing about the work-life balance. What I firmly believe is if you are really enjoying what you are doing, then every
Absolutely.
day is a holiday and every day is your work day. So there is nothing like you
I
need.
echo your thoughts.
Okay, so
Love
let's
what
come
I
back.
do. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's come
Uh,
back to your question. In the environment nowadays, where everyone is talking about the AI, and we read lot of surveys which are coming that it will have a major impact. It will have an impact on the workforce, and especially. At the bottom of the pyramid, which we say where everyone is doing the repetitive work, and I know that Gen Z is entering the workforce now, so they also have a lot of anxiety about it. But
true.
we also hear that every single day there is one or other development which is coming, and trust me, my every Sunday half a day goes in understanding the development which is happening in the AI, just to keep myself updated and try out the different models. So first thing what we need to understand is AI is not going to replace lot of job. The people who know the AI will definitely is going to replace you. So that's the difference when we are talking about it, and not to worry about it. It is just that with the time we all need to develop, enhance our skill, and continue doing what we are doing. But yeah, one thing is very clear: world is changing very fast. Be it it's very so we assume that it's very easy for Gen Z to adapt to the change and be agile, and it will not be the same for the senior folks with the experience of more than 15 or 20 years. No, it is nothing like it. It is about how you take the things and adapt to the situation. And yeah, I'm sure. So we all need to be on our toes, and things are changing very fast, and things will change very fast.
Okay. If leaders could change one thing this year to prepare for the future workforce, what do you think it should be?
So one thing is, yeah, yeah, it's one thing. I have absolute clarity on this, and
Absolutely. Sure, you do. Yeah.
yeah, so the clarity which we need to have and provide, that everyone who works with us have
Hmm.
absolute clarity about what is expected out of our team.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
was so last 3 days we were in a offsite where we were discussing about our business plan for the FY27.
Hmm.
We roll out our budget, we roll out our strategies, what are we doing, and then we expect team or the management or the leaders and the workforce to deliver the result.
True.
Because in every single day what we are doing is we are too busy with the activities and too many activities. So what is
Yeah.
very important to provide clarity to everyone is about
Mhm.
the priority which they need to address. And
Yeah.
as a human being, you take any survey, especially even Harvard says, or most of the leadership or strategy says, any
Mhm.
human being cannot focus on more than three priorities at a time, and they will not be able to do justice, right? So, if we provide the clarity to our workforce, our employee, our team, that these are the top three priorities, or maybe you can take four or five if required. If we
Yeah.
provide this clarity and single mind focus in delivering those with the periodical review, we always deliver on what we focus, and it always grows what we focus. So if we have a clarity about our top priorities, which can be three to five, but I'll still remain at the three, and just review it on a regular basis. If we have this clarity, then I'm sure this year will be financial year will be very great for all of us, and that's what
So
we need to do as a team, as a leader, and as a workforce.
So the rule of three, which also AI talks about, right? Focus on three core tasks, keep the focus only there, and you would be able to, I would say, thrive this year and the years ahead. Awesome. That was a good learning. Okay, another reflective question for you. What excites you the most about the work? That is the way the workforce is evolving, the way the work is evolving, the way things are changing in today's world. Yeah.
If we can answer this question, then I'm sure we have an answer for everything in life. And
Okay.
that answer is the purpose. If we have a clarity about the purpose, what are we working for? And most
Uh-huh.
of the time we see we struggle. Even after spending some of the people 10, 15 years or 20 years in workforce, they don't have a clarity. What are they working for? But if you find the answer, what
Uh,
is the purpose? Why I am working? If you have that clarity, then life becomes very easy. And
awesome.
my managing director, Mr. Varun Khanna, has coined the word amplify, AMP, accountability, motivation, and purpose. If you have a purpose, then you will be motivated and you will feel accountable for what you are doing. So that's very important, I think.
Interesting, very interesting. And that actually you take away a very important aspect of a question that I had. What do you think is more important, purpose or promotion? And you've answered that for me. Okay, so now we get into a very interesting part of the live, which is I'm going to ask you some rapid fire questions. So you have to just answer this or that. Is that fine?
I'll try.
Okay. Experience or curiosity?
Curiosity.
Hierarchy
Curiosity
or
keeps going, they keep exploring you the new things. So for sure, curiosity.
hierarchy or flat teams?
Flat team.
Flat teams.
Yeah.
Skills or
So
degrees?
skills or
Degrees.
skills. Degree will help
Okay.
you to certain extent, but skills will take you to the places.
Awesome. Remote working or office working?
Office working. Especially, so let me say this
In
from
your
purely from
industry.
the hospital perspective. You
Absolutely.
need
I
to be
can't.
in the workplace.
I need to
But
go and
yeah,
see a
people are
doctor rather
adapting
than
to
submit.
hybrid model nowadays.
Sorry, I would prefer to go to a hospital and see a doctor rather
No,
than,
even we were working during the COVID.
yeah, so,
So yeah,
absolutely.
workplace.
Emails or voice notes?
Email. I still a traditional person. I prefer documentations and provide the absolute clarity. When you speak in voice, you don't understand. But it may help if you can bring some emotions in voice note. But yeah, I still go old way emails.
Your preference is still emails. Okay, perfect. AI as a coworker, AI as a tool.
A as a coworker makes life easy.
Coworker?
Yeah,
Oh, awesome. Very interesting. Okay. Authority or influence?
influence. As a leader, you need to influence the people who follow.
Okay. So, a quick thought on the topics that I give you, one liners. Um, one myth about Gen Z.
They are lazy. They don't want to work.
Okay. One things leaders overcomplicate.
Good question.
I need an
With that,
answer.
now they overcomplicate with their analysis. Analysis
Okay.
is a paralysis. Yeah.
Analysis paralysis. That's a good one. One workplace practice that should become a norm.
Treat every single person in the organization, doesn't matter at what level they are, we all are equal and we need to treat each other with the respect and dignity.
Okay. One leadership habit that must disappear in the next decade.
Disappear.
Disappear, yes.
The superiority complex many leaders has. So that has to disappear and this has to disappear immediately. 10 years or
Okay.
any long period is a long time. Yeah.
Okay. One leadership quality that will never go out of style.
It is taking care of your team, accountable for your team.
Very beautifully said. Taking care of your team. If you could give one piece of advice to the leaders of today, what would that be?
Be adaptable. Things are changing, world is changing, changing very fast. So adapt to the situation and move ahead.
Okay. One word answers, and then we will conclude the session. The one quality every leader must unlearn. One word.
Mm. But that's difficult. Not coming a single word to my mind.
Okay,
But
get me whatever is coming to your mind. I'll leave
yeah,
it.
so now what we need to unlearn is what we have learned over the years, the management principle, the leadership principles, the old way of thinking, because we are getting into a world which is going to get dominated by AI. So the what we have learned over the years is changing very fast. The old rules of the world is changing very fast. We have seen what US is doing. So not only geopoliticals, even in political arena, in the office space or organization is again changing very fast. Yeah.
Okay. So, apart from adaptability, what is the one quality every leader has to build to be able to thrive in the future?
Agility
Adaptability and agility. What will be the future of the workforce in one word?
will be dominated by AI.
So, with this, I want you to answer, give me three tips, three things that you would want to share as your three gifts to the people who are watching us and to the leaders that they should and must do, and with your experience, that could be the takeaway from this particular life for them.
Number first is nothing is impossible. Everything is possible. You need to have that intensity, ready to put effort for it. Every dims can become a reality. So nothing can stop you if you are with single-minded working for it, and we can make all our dreams a reality. Think about and be positive all the time. Negativity never takes us anywhere. So be remain positive, think of a victory, and you'll be victorious. These are the top three things which I'm working thought process with me from the day one I started working and will remain with me. So that's the advice or a suggestion I can give to anyone.
Awesome. I have one personal question to ask you before I end the session. One word which is very, very often misused in the corporate world is a word called trust. And it takes years and years to build it. But one act and it just goes boom out of the window. What does trust mean to you? And what do you think leaders can do to build the trust of their teams? Because that is one question I grapple with most leaders. My question to you at a personal level.
At the outset, let me say I take people at the face value. I trust them unless and until it is proven otherwise. Right? It takes lot of effort every single day to build that trust. And I have a philosophical view, and my I can take another 1 or 2 minutes and narrate the story.
Please, please do. I would like to know the answer for this question because this is something I work with very
Yeah.
aggressively with
So
leaders.
the question you have, I had also had a question that I still believe that take people at the face value and trust them unless until they prove otherwise. So there was a time when most of the time I was feel betrayed by the actions of the people who work with me or the friends we have, and I was very annoyed. I was really disappointed, and I'm sure if you know, there is Morari Bapu, is a very sant from the Gujarat who does the Ramayana Katha at a lot of places, very respected name. It's not that I believe in Guru, but one day I was having the intellectual discussion with Morari Bapuji, and I raised this question to him. I said, Babu, most of the time I trust people, and at the end of the day, betray, and I feel very disappointed. Now I have decided I'll not trust the people, and it's very disappointing at the end of the day. And the answer which he gave me has changed my life, my perspective for my entire life. And what he said is, Harish, we are individual and we have a basic nature. And if your basic nature is about trusting people, then it is your karma. You need to do your karma, and that's what we read in Gita, karmanyavadikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. We need to keep doing our deeds or a karma and not expect the result. If someone is betraying you, then it is their karma. You can't change your nature or swabhav, they call it in Hindi. Because if you do that, then you will not remain who you are. So why you want to change yourself because someone is doing something? If you do that, then you will not remain who you are. So that has changed my perspective, and I trust people. But yeah, it takes a lot of years, time. But continue doing what you are doing, and don't worry about what others people are doing. So remain focused. Yeah, back to you, Nandini.
Okay, sure. So, based on what you said, it's a very philosophical thing to say that do what your karma is, and don't look at what the result is. But in corporate India, we do worry, if I trust the wrong people, how is it going to affect me and a lot of other things. So, just wanted to know, are there any tips that you have on how do you increase this trust amongst people then?
So most of the time, trust people, but keep checking.
That's the tip. Really nice. So trust with caution, or do a dipstick when things are going wrong. So no
Keep
blind
on
trust.
checking. Keep on checking. Keep on checking all the time.
Harish, personally asking you, there were a lot of insights for me myself. One, of course, because this is the topic that I'm working on, with a lot of leaders on how to build organizations wherein the younger generation or the teams trust you. But more than that, your insights on how you need to humanize effects, how leaders need to take accountability, and how you're supposed to not blame people, but how you're supposed to ensure that you listen to them, make them feel heard, make them feel valued in an organization is something that will take not only the leaders forward in the long run, but also ensure that teams are happier. And I loved your definition of work-life balance, which is very similar to mine. If you love what you do, every single day is interesting. Every single conversation becomes very motivating and inspiring, and which was for me right now. And yeah, so a lot of learnings for me, and I'm sure the people who are watching in and those who would watch this live a little later would have questions for you. So with your permission, can I put out to my viewers that in case they have questions for you and they put it out on the chat, would you be happy to answer that for them?
Sure, anytime, Nandita.
So this is for all of those who want to ask questions and have missed out today's Sunday live. Please do share in your questions to Harish or anything for me. I'd be happy to take your feedback for us, and also your questions for Harish. He's promised us that he'd be happy to answer them. And in case you want us to cover a particular topic or a leader, do write into us. We'll be happy to have you, that leader, with us. We'll try our best to get that leader for you so that we can learn and grow together. So that is all from my side. Thank you very much, Harish, for coming in. It was an absolute delight to share this last 1 hour with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Nandita, for giving me this opportunity. Trust me, I thoroughly enjoy our discussion. Thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you so much. And good night. Have a nice weekend, everyone. And happy Monday morning to everyone.
Enjoy yourself. Thank you.
Enjoy.